this cute thing happened where we were having a photo shoot for the game, and we had all these different kind of polycules, couples posing, taking pictures together. And in the other room, a group of men got together and they started this like spontaneous men's group just talking about the questions and learning from one another. And we're like, wait, there's something really juicy going on in there. That's a cool use we hadn't thought of.
Hey, I'm Alicia, your non-monogamous relationship coach. Welcome to the podcast where my friends and I chat about our relationships, enthusiastic non-monogamy, polyamory, swinging, kink, and our lives. You'll get a candid peek into what makes it worth it to live life outside the box. And in case you're still wondering, nope, we're not monogamous.
Okay, imagine a game that could spark deeper conversations, foster understanding, strengthen your relationships. Well, that's exactly what the brilliant minds behind the non-monogamy card game have created. Excuse my voice. I'm a little bit sick. I was not this sick when we recorded the episode, but I am now. And I'm really excited. I just got this game. And I'm really, really excited to take a look at it and share it with you. Our conversation about the game was freaking phenomenal. If you're tired of like awkward silences and conversations that just keep going round and round about the same topics in non-monogamy, these two professional psychotherapists from Northern California, Ayala and Kristen, have spent so many hours creating this deck of like 150 thought-provoking questions designed to help you dive deep into your values, your desires, your needs. Oh, brand new, small, woman-owned Bay Area business spent the last year designing, developing, and testing the game. There's a little letter in here. Oh my God, they sent these little, I'll show you, these little stickers. The artwork on this game is so beautiful. I love it. I had to get rid of that. And here you go. Here's the game. This box is stunning. If you're listening to the episode and you aren't seeing it, just know that like it is gorgeous. It's like cream and has these beautiful humans on it and a little magnetic closure for the box, which I'm a big fan of. Oh my God, I love this, guys. It comes with two decks, the Foundations deck and the Deep Dive deck. Oh, I can't see it there. Anyways, and I am so excited to play this with my partners. I'll probably bring it on the show and share it a little bit with you. So whether you are just dipping your toes into ethical non-monogamy, if you've been doing this for years, this game is a really fun and approachable way to explore some of the complexities of non-monogamy, polyamory, open relationships, bring up some topics around boundaries and discussing your expectations. And I am so excited to share it with you. Just listen to the episode. You're going to hear about the creators of this game, about their experiences, their journey, their insights, how they have used this with their clients who are navigating non-monogamy, and how you can use this game to level up your relationships. Don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss any episodes. I keep coming up with new ideas and fun things that we're going to start doing. So subscribe, leave me a review if you really love me. I adore you. Bye. There we go. Did it. Cool. So this is what we'll do. First of all, welcome to Nope, We're Not Monogamous. I'm really happy you guys are coming on, and I'm really excited about your game. And Ayala and Kristen, first thing I want to ask you is just, can you tell me and tell the listeners just a little bit about your game?
Definitely. I'm really excited to be here sharing about it. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are getting familiar with these kind of conversation-based card games. There's a few of them out there now. and that are just help you kind of deepen into intimacy. There's some for relationships, there's some for friendships, some for family. So this is similar to that concept, and specifically for anyone anywhere in the non-monogamy umbrella.
Yeah.
Want to dive in?
Yeah, this is actually something that had its origins in asks from our clients and in conversations with our friends in our own community.
Yeah.
There are a few books out there that we could always recommend. People say, like, I want a resource, like, what's the book or something like that.
Yeah.
However, not everybody's a reader. And even if you are a reader, so you read the book, now what?
Yeah.
Unless you took notes or, we're going back and underlining things or whatever, you might not really find that book to be much of a tool. So we were looking for a way. We kept having these conversations like, have you got any new resources? I don't have a new resource. Do you have a resource? So then we created a Google document, and then we started formulating questions that we thought were good questions. And then all of a sudden it was sort of like, well, why don't we just create the product that we want to use?
Yeah.
Why don't we do it? Why?
We wanted to make it more fun than sitting down to a list of questions as you're trying to navigate these conversations. We're like, how do we make this fun and engaging
and accessible,
and not this like one time you sit down and get through the conversations about making your relationship work, because it doesn't actually work that way.
Yeah.
And more, what's a way that we can keep coming back and engaging these questions that help create kind of structure around our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So the game itself is 2 decks. And the first deck is like foundational questions. Well, first we created one deck and we found people, because this game is for people that are just exploring non-monogamy. It's also for people who have been in practicing kitchen table polyamory for the last 10 years.
Nice.
And there are very different questions that might be relevant based on where you are in that.
Uh-huh.
So we first created one deck and people were like, okay, that's really too intimidating to jump right into like, so what happens if kids are part of the conversation questions when you're like, do we want to open our relationship? So we now divide it into 2 decks. Deck 1 is really values kind of conversations. Why are we excited about this relationship? What are we excited about in this relationship? And then deck 2 is more like the nitty-gritty questions of like, okay, do you have any kind of strong boundaries around changing sheets between sexual partners and things that are more like, let's talk details.
Yeah.
Of course, when you're creating such an umbrella game, there's going to be questions in there that are not relevant to each person who's playing and each relationship. And we really made it to kind of be flexible, to come dip in, pull a few cards. These are relevant, these aren't. And that's going to change over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we spent about 9 months workshopping the questions with people who are actually practicing non-monogamy. So we'd send out all these test questions, people would play them, they'd give us feedback, we'd refine them, and we just refine them and refine them and refine them until we came down with 2 decks, 75 cards each. So there's a total of 150 relationship prompts that we feel really proud of and excited to share.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. I wonder, was there any, when you were going through that process of like refining the questions and refining the deck, were there any surprises or challenges that came up?
We ran into people's hard edges. We ran into some black and whiteness. Like, so for example, a couple people that we tested questions, we put questions in there about kids. What would we tell the kids? What if metamorphs decide they want to have a kid and we had all decided we weren't having any kids? And we had some strong reactions to people's edges.
Yeah.
So we weren't like, oh, we're not going to put these in here because this person had a strong reaction, but you could tell that maybe they held a particular belief around children being welcome in non-monogamy or whatever. I don't know. So that was kind of surprising how impactful some of the questions felt to people.
And like so many diverse relationships, what people's edges were totally different.
Different.
Oh,
Because we
yeah.
had someone else test, who's a parent raising children with their polycule, who was like, I'm so glad you have
Grateful.
these.
Thank you for putting those.
And someone else that was like, oh, these questions about like sexual health are edgy. And to someone else, that's just like a given. So it's really fun to kind of feel where different edges are.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was intrigued by is that it's the non-monogamy game and not the polyamory game, right? Because and that's why I called the show "Nope, We're Not Monogamous." And I'm polyamorous, but also like there's so many different forms of non-monogamy. And for some people, it's not about sex. And for other people, it's absolutely about sex. And why would we talk about anything else?
Yeah, we did that. Sounds like your show really intentionally.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to be inclusive and to leave room for people in the non-monogamy conversation right now. There's so much different language that's being developed and changing all the time, and different labels, like everything was ENM, and now we're like dropping the ethical, because doesn't everyone want an ethical relationship? And so we really wanted to intentionally like leave room to matter less kind of what label you were putting on it, and a lot more for people grounded to their own values. Like, what's uniquely me? What's important to me here? And what's important to the people I'm in partnership with here? And how do we have those conversations rather than
this is what we
niche.
are, and this is how it is, and therefore we should act this way.
Mm-hmm.
We want to feel that there's an easy on-ramp to the conversation, knowing that, yes, here in the Bay Area, there's this probably very astute section of people practicing non-monogamy or polyamory that are very, very aware and involved, and it's, very political for them or stuff. But if you think about 330 million people in the United States of America, there's probably more likely hundreds of thousands or millions of people that are curious but maybe intimidated around the conversation. And we really want those people to feel welcome, that our product is something that is really not terrifying, that there isn't one way to play or one way to be. And the pathway of getting there to us is more start with your values. Let that inform what is a priority in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, begin to make choices and agreements that are living and evolutionary and feel very permissed to explore in that way. Not like you need to hit the ground running at this level with this kind of practice and run with this particular crowd. And then you're not, in order to be practicing properly. So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Oh, you had mentioned that people were wanting to or finding themselves putting black and white labels on, and I was curious how the game helps people shift that mindset or find more nuance.
that's a great question. I think it's in the way we phrase the questions, is that we make them, they're really expansive, and it's more like we're not like, do you identify with this or that, rather than what is your desire, what is your need, what is your fear, what is your longing.
And we never explicitly tell people, say anything against labels either. We're not here to tell people that if labels are helpful, that not to use them. It's just not what we're basing the game in, especially because those can mean so many different things to different people.
And they're changing all the time.
Yeah, and they're constantly evolving. So we base it more around these things that Kristen's talking about, like the values and the longings and the fears, so that people can put that on or not as suits them, but that's not the focus.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
And I think, and also when we were sort of doing the foundational visioning of the game, we identified our professional values for the product as being one that was inclusive, accessible, and celebrated nuance.
Yeah.
So as we were developing and testing the questions, we would kind of run it through those filters.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we really like this idea of nuance because in so much of when we were talking, the way we view non-monogamy is kind of stepping outside of like, this is the one way we do things and
Mhm.
making room for how unique we each are
Yeah.
and how unique each of our different relationships are going to look from each other. And so as humans, we like containment, we like labels, we like things to reduce them to make sense. Of course, our brains do that.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to center this idea of we're stepping outside of the kind of traditional one way in order to explore the nuance of each of us and each of our relationships. So why would we try to contain it and condense it down to anything?
Mhm.
So that's kind of the place we were operating from.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. That's so good. I'm curious, without delving too much into personal details, how have your own experiences with non-monogamy informed the creation and the content of the game?
Yeah, I think that's definitely different for both of us. And there's some overlap. We've known each other for been good friends as well as colleagues for like 15 years now.
Amazing.
And the community we first met each other through was very non-monogamous. And when I first came into that community, I was about 19. And so very early in my dating experience. And I'd say I learned a lot of ways not to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what dating at 19 is often
Yeah.
about.
Totally.
Or your relationships are. But really, most of my kind of early informative relationships in that community were non-monogamous. And at one point, after I'd been seeing someone in this non-monogamous on again, off again relationship for about 8 years, I ended it to be like, I think I want to experiment with monogamy for the first time in my life, which I think is a little reverse from
It definitely was the reverse of my situation because I got married at 23. I was married in a monogamous relationship for 14 years and had 3 kids, and then got divorced in my mid 30s. And I would say that I crash landed into non-monogamy, didn't know anything about it. I just fell in love with someone who basically was like, okay, I'm non-monogamous and this is how this is going to work. And so he was polyamorous. That was his identity, and basically told me how things were going to be. And because I didn't know anything, because I just very much wanted to be with him, I struggled a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it was forced kitchen table polyamory, and it didn't feel comfortable. And I had a lot of shame and wanted very much to meet him where he wanted to be met. And it was really hard.
Yeah.
And it took me until I got out of that relationship, learned more, and then claimed non-monogamy as this personal revolution in my own life as a late 30s, early 40s person, and then had been practicing it for about 6 years when I fell in love with someone. And then similarly, he was non-monogamous. He was like, let's try monogamy. And it was so novel. We were like, oh, that sounded so edgy. Let's try it. So like we've both been sort of in and out of both things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think just as couples therapists, we share values that we want transparency and radical honesty and sovereignty, but how do we make commitments that are healthy and feel good for everyone? How do we even have those conversations?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think very much in the way I do relationships now, whether they're look more monogamous on the outside or more monogamish on the outside, they're very seeped in the values I learned from non-monogamy.
Yes.
And that's something I didn't realize till I tried dating people who were very new to non-monogamy or had never done non-monogamy or very monogamous, that I was like, oh, we have these, might be calling it the same label, but we're viewing it very differently because of how informed I was by these early experiences in non-monogamy, where nothing's assumed, where everything is like, what do you need to feel safe in this situation? And that was just how I learned to do it. And my assumption was, until we had those conversations, I wasn't going to assume that we were one thing or another. And then coming in from to a relationship with people that were mostly monogamous, I was like, oh, there's a lot of assumptions right there.
Yeah.
And so that's the part I hold really dear, even as I myself swim between different relationships that look different ways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love that. I always tell people, like, the most important piece is that people are in and creating relationships that work for the people that are in those relationships rather than everyone that's not in them. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And we do, within the game, we do try to take people from a very deeply personal and internal space and give them a lot of permission and room to be curious about their desires, longings, needs, values, stories, fears, all of that. And then it progresses to, how do we actually interface with the world? I mean, there are a lot of questions around, extended family, work life, as children get older, or if we have kids, like things that might come up once you've been in it for a while. And so one of the things that we were just talking about before we got on was how much people desire to come in to talk about really hard things, and what a relief it is to be in relationship therapy, because the therapist takes that pressure off of the couple or the polycule by introducing the question or the topic. And in the same way, we got the feedback from our testers that, oh my gosh, these are things that I was too scared to bring up. But they are so important. There's just something about, oh, well, that's the card I picked.
Yeah.
I didn't bring it up. The game brought it up.
The game brought it up.
While we're here.
Exactly.
I love that. It is. That is the thing of there's so many things we could or should talk about, but like, do we want to do it right now? Is this going to cause a problem? Do I have the spoons for it? Like, I can't anticipate what's going to happen. That is very different from, we're playing a game.
Yeah. Exactly. And then there's this thing that I have found in my own relationships where I'll build up the nerve to bring up a conversation. You bring it up, you start talking about it, and it's easy to not stay there very long.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to be like, to ask a question, you get a one-line answer. I'm kind of nervous, so rather than stay in it and deepen with it, I rush on to the next topic.
Yeah.
And of course, like, we all get nervous around the edgier conversations. And so we did a few things to kind of help create ease around that. One is we also threw in some really juicy, yummy, feel-good questions. It is a game. You want the things that are going to be like, ooh, I want to hear your answer to that. I want to tell you about that.
Yeah.
So it's not just edgy. Another is we threw in a lot of similar questions for the things that seem to take a little more coming back to.
Oh.
So the question might come up, and then it might be asked another way. And most people we found only pull like 3 or 4 cards at a time, because each one spins out to another conversation and another.
Yeah.
So you might pull 3 cards, and 6 months later, you might be pulling some different cards, and a similar one comes back, but this time asked another way that pulls out a different nuance. And we also then created, like, if people really are finding they're still skating through the questions faster than they want, we created a whole advanced play that helps give guidance on how to kind of think about each question in a more layered way.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you can rush through, and that's okay. And it's also, here's ways to stay in it and marinate with the questions if you want.
Oh, I like that. That's one of the things I was wondering, was like, okay, answer questions, but how do you keep it going? Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, we actually, we based our advanced gameplay on something called the ORID model.
Okay.
ORID. And it actually comes from business.
Yeah.
And it's basically how to take a conversation from an initial reaction into an actual agreement and a practice. So there's basically 4 different steps. And we really, really, really wanted to make sure that everybody knew that there was no one right way to play and there really weren't rules. So we literally have the tiniest little tiniest instruction sheet. It's about 4 inches high, and it basically just says there are no rules, but if you want, here's several ways you could play. You could pull a few cards to take on a card trip. You could go through the deck. Each partner could go through the deck and pull several cards and say, for our relationship check-ins over the next month, these are the topics that are really important to me. And then if you really want to take it all the way down to how do we make a living agreement around this conversation, then that particular advanced gameplay, the steps that we put in there really help people do that.
That's amazing. I love that. As someone who hates lots of game instructions because we play a lot of games in our house, I love that.
The hardest part of learning a new game
is always the instructions. How are we supposed to play? And so we definitely have a more anarchist view around that. Like, just take them, dump them out, do what you want with them,
Yes. Amazing. I love it. I love it.
And a lot of our ideas about how to use came back from our testers.
Yeah.
We shared it with friends. We shared it with people in our community, and they're like, oh yeah, we were on a hike and we just started pulling cards together. This cute thing happened where we were having a photo shoot for the game, and we had all these different kind of polycules, couples posing, taking pictures together. And in the other room, a group of men got together and they started this like spontaneous men's group just talking about the questions and learning from one another. And we're like, wait, there's something really juicy going on in there. That's a cool use we hadn't thought of.
Yeah, just friends having general conversations just around relationship desires, values, needs, goals.
This is how I do it. How do you do it?
How do you do it? Right. It's not even necessarily people that are interested to have being in any sort of partnership or relationship or a play partner in any way, but just between a group. It did that between a group of men and then between the group of women too. Whoever wasn't shooting was just sort of off, and they were all just sort of diving in and exploring, and that just felt so good.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I was looking at your website. I love the art on the cover of your game. It's so good.
Thank you. That's a shout out to Jenna Blank, Blnack. She was amazing to work with. She 100% got our vision, was able to execute it super rapidly.
She was just a joy because we were all over the place with our ideas, and I feel like she just heard them all and turned them into something so beautiful that we're so inspired by, proud of.
We wanted it to definitely be something that even you aren't using it, that you'd be proud to have it just sitting out on your coffee table or on your bookshelf. That it was intriguing, and that it wasn't going to be stuck in your closet.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I am very, very excited to get it because
it works.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Yeah, it really does. Thank you so much.
Of course. I think it's going to be amazing. I'm curious, how do you envision that? Okay, my brain just asked 4 questions, so let me condense it down to 1. How do you envision the game being played or being used by groups that are groups or couples that are new to non-monogamy versus those who've been practicing it for a while?
Yeah, our vision, and this is really why we divide it into 2 decks.
Yeah.
Because if there's a couple that say you've been together in a monogamous, committed relationship, it's a lot to jump into thinking about, like, what are dynamics of how much you want to share with new partners.
Yeah.
Like, that might not be something you even thought about, or at what point you want to be introducing new partners. That's like really skipping a lot of steps to jump into the conversation.
Yeah.
So that's why we've really divided this into 2 decks. Like, save those questions for after you're comfortable even talking about, like, what are you excited about this? How do you think this is you're gonna grow within non-monogamy? What are your natural relationship strengths that are gonna come out here? What are you nervous about? Are there things you're really afraid of? So deck 1 really has a lot of those kind of questions. And so our vision was, it would begin, say this monogamous couple we're imagining, just pulling some of those cards and playing this together, pulling cards, having conversations. We say playing, but we found a lot with feedback. People, it's not like you go and you play through the entire deck 1 in one sitting.
Right.
Most people average about 2 to 4 cards per sitting.
Yeah. Nice
And
and
so
deep.
maybe once a week you're pulling those cards until you feel like, I think we want to actually start doing something about this. And it's only as that grows, as the safety grows, as you decide together that you're ready, that you might be taking action and doing something about it, and at your own timing. And then maybe down the road, as you start to know yourself and like know what your edges might be, some of the more deck 2 deep dive questions become a little more relevant.
Yeah, the skill and provocativeness for sure. So maybe it might be, you might not be seeing anyone right now, dating anyone right now. You might be fresh out of a breakup or divorced, and you're like, okay, well, I know what I don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe, so we do envision that it's a great solo activity as well, something that in relationship are buying for themselves. And I would be so impressed if I fell for someone and, we went out on a date and we were like kind of a yes to explore the relationship. And that person said to me, okay, I have this great game and I'm very curious to know how you might answer some questions like, what are some stories that you tell yourself about monogamy versus non-monogamy?
Yeah.
How do you live your values in relationship? How do you feel that non-monogamy would help you express those values and desires? What are you excited for us in terms of practicing it or not?
Yeah.
Before you even get any to the like logistical sheet changing STI questions, just like, are we even on the same wavelength in terms of, and that just felt, there I would say probably at least, I don't know, what percentage would you say of the foundation stack are not even non-monogamy specific? They're much more about values, desires, needs, dreams, fears, stories, past precedent, things like that, to help you really sort through how you come to what feels like a priority in your life right now.
Yeah.
And another way it can be used, like, okay, say you're early in opening your relationship, is to create solid agreements. We found in our conversations, we really tend to pull away from this idea of solid rules and more of agreements as a living practice and something you have to come back to and renegotiate, is because we can have ideas of how we want to be in the world. We can have ideas of how we want to be when we meet someone new and the things that are going to make us feel safe. And then you get an actual situation with somebody new and you don't know how you're going to feel.
Yeah.
So we like the flexibility of this. These are living agreements, and it's important to revisit these conversations. And that doesn't, just because they're living and flexible, doesn't mean we shouldn't have the solid conversations around them. Because that's one thing I found in my practice as a therapist and in my community is people can be like, oh, we don't like rules, so we're just not going to talk about it. And anything goes.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, just because we leave room for, I'm going to change, you're going to change, this new partner that we bring in is going to change our group dynamic, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be being like, and right now, this is where I feel like my agreements are. So the whole deck is designed that if you want to use it that way, you can be having a sheet of paper and listing, like, these are the solid agreements that are coming out of these conversations.
Yeah.
These are the things that are work in progress agreements that we want to revisit. And these are the things we can't come to agreements at all around, but we want to keep tracking with each other. So that's another way that it can be used.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, even if it isn't, even if you're like, we're complete anarchists and we don't want to have any rules, at least there's a card in there that says, how do we determine, like, do we have a check-in? Do we have a conversation? Like, how do we even have that?
Yeah.
So there's I think of the term scaffolding. So we're
Sure.
trying to scaffold you or give you multiple on-ramps. And then there's sort of various and sundry levels of provocation around questions around jealousy or time or,
Yeah.
and so it kind of grows in that way. And so now let's fast forward. Let's say you're like one of our test couples, a polycule that's been living with kids and in the same home for 13 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now things are really changing. They moved back east. They moved out of the Bay Area. Now all of a sudden, conversations they've never had to have before about what is our public face? How do we help our kids navigate this in a new community? How do we what is our collective party line about, are we out? Are we not out? How is that for people? And just much more, I wouldn't say they're deeper, but much more attuned to people who've been living in family or in polyamory or in non-monogamy in the long term. So.
Yeah. I love it so much. This is amazing. It's fantastic. I feel like it's something that I know I get asked for a lot. Like, what do we even talk about? Like, what are we supposed to talk about?
There was a lot of getting that question that birthed this game.
Yeah. And then we just kept writing them down going, this is ridiculous. This is getting to be really long. How do we even organize these? How do we make it really fun? And then also we wanted to make it really portable too.
Yeah.
So this is something you can put in your backpack, put it in your bag, take it with you on vacation, use it in, this is a great way to, I met someone new. Really? Let's bring them over for dinner, and then like, this is a great sort of entree into welcome to our party. Would you like to play?
Amazing. Okay, I'm curious. Do either of you, both of you, do you have a favorite card in the deck?
Oh, it's so hard.
I have not even thought about it. We're doing a virtual game night with the deck coming up soon here, and we were pulling cards, re-looking through everything. It's so funny, we've spent so much time combing over these cards, and I'll still go through. I'll be like, I forgot we'd asked that question.
Oh, that's a great question.
Like,
that's a
we're
great
good.
question. Yeah. I don't know. I think what's exciting about non-monogamy for you or for us, I think that feels like full of heart and energy.
Yeah.
It was really important to us not to have all the questions be on the hard stuff, because I think sometimes people come to these conversations and they're like, so what do we do about jealousy? So what are the things that aren't going to work? And how do we create agreements to protect us from all the things that might hurt? Which we know is impossible. But we also wanted to make part of the conversation the edges of like, where's the joy? Why are we doing this? What are we most excited about to experience together with others in different situations? So that's not a particular question, but I love that we weave in both.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's so important. It's probably one of the most important things is like, what about this relationship style or structure? What about this do I like enough to go through all the hard work?
Yeah.
What's my motivation?
Because that's well, yeah, and I'm sure you see this a lot as well, is that, so a couple's having a hard time, let's open the relationship. That is usually a recipe for disaster, because if you're not communicating well or feeling solid between the two of you, adding more people to the mix is just a different way of blowing the whole entire thing up. Like I end up feeling like non-monogamy requires you to be a communication ninja.
Yeah.
You don't get to communicate less. You have to communicate more and with more clarity and more heart. And so it's just a very complicated, large thing to hold. And I think more than we've seen it done well, we've seen it done really poorly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shadow in there. And I think I can definitely draw on my own experience of feeling really unseen and unheard in my first foray with non-monogamy. I didn't have the courage. You know, I have a client that she was wanting more monogamy than non-monogamy and was feeling a lot of guilt around the amount of transition time she had it. So just knowing and seeing that there's a card that asked her, how much time do you want between partners?
Yeah.
Made her feel more permissed and confident and not ashamed to be like, well, I don't know what I want, or I want more than what I feel like I can ask for. So
Yes. I love that so much. It's so good. Okay, let me ask you this. How, focus, Alicia. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to share?
Not this popping to mind. This is you're so good. You've covered so
Thank
many
you.
aspects we're excited about.
yeah,
Well, how can people find the game?
they can go to the non-monogamycardgame.com.
Yes.
There's no hyphen for anything, just
Yep.
non-monogamycardgame.com.
And
Love
it's
it.
the non-monogamy card game on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok as well.
Amazing. I love it. And I'll put the link in the show notes because it's nice to be able to just click on things.
Yes, take it easy.
Fantastic. I am so excited that you guys did this, and I've loved talking to you because this is one, you guys are delightful, but two, you've put so much thought and heart into this, and I'm really excited to play it with my partners and with my clients.
I love that because I think, thank you for making that point, because we have also made this as a professional tool, and we're really hoping that relationship coaches and other psychotherapists also feel like this is something really valuable to have in their practice to use with their clients as well. So thanks for that so much. And thanks so much for your enthusiasm and lifting us up.
Yeah, it means
really
so much.
nice.
As I'm sure you could tell, like, this feels so near and dear to our heart, and we've just put so much into it. Are so excited to be sharing it at this point. And along the point of professionals, I think I just love that there's people like more and more people like you, like us out there who are working with non-monogamous folks, because for so long, the traditional couples therapy model did not leave space for this to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And we're really excited for a tool to help therapists who might not have as much expertise bring more nuance into their conversation with folks. So I'm just so grateful you're out here doing what you're doing too.
Amazing. Thank you.